every vote counts, it'll continue to disenfranchise people in the territories.
Yes. Yeah.
So it doesn't, it's not really every vote counts.
All states, only people are
So
states,
there's-
only
yeah,
states
there's
are counted.
And DC also.
Yeah, DC, states are defined as, DC is defined as a state under the definition. But we don't, her point was we don't count territories.
Right.
Guam,
So-
Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands.
That's a
So it
separate issue.
continues, but it doesn't, but it's, well, I guess my point was, not every vote counts.
Well, I can have like
German
votes
citizens
now.
or-
Exactly.
Exactly.
When it's the point I made, it continues to disenfranchise.
If it's the ideal you're striving
But if
That's
they,
it,
if they
right.
do go through the
Saying
process of
here's your-
becoming a state and want to join the compact, they're more than welcome.
I'm not from Puerto Rico, thanks. I'm from here.
No, if they, I said if they.
No, okay, I thought you said it's me.
No, they, yeah.
They mean them.
Yeah.
Okay,
Know what I mean?
they're trying, they've tried.
Yeah.
Okay, so how are votes determined? So this is about the safe harbor provision. At least 6 days, member states, Article 3-4, at least 6 days before the day fixed by law for the meeting and voting by the presidential electors, each member state shall make a final determination of the number of popular votes cast in the state for each presidential slate and shall communicate an official statement of such determination within 24 hours to the chief election official of each other member state. So, oops, sorry, this is the wrong one. So 6 days refers to this thing we talked about before about the safe harbor provision. The safe harbor provision corresponds to the federal law, and this was, defined in Bush v. Gore too, where they said, look, you got to finish this up by this date. So in Section 5, Title 3 of the U.S. Code, it says if any state shall have provided by laws enacted prior to the date fixed for the appointment of the electors for its final determination of any controversy or contest concerning the appointment of all or any of the electors of such state by judicial or other methods of procedure, and such determination shall have been made at least 6 days before the time fixed for the meeting of the electors. Such determination made, legal lingo.
Yeah.
Such determination made pursuant to such laws so existing on said day, and made at least 6 days prior to said time of meeting of the electors shall be conclusive. Right? So that's the really important thing, that this is determinative and conclusive. Right? That you come to this conclusion, and every state is required to do this within 6 days. So.
Well, yeah. There's
Or
an
their
important
meeting of the
important
electors.
distinction. That's for the compact that members are required.
Right.
But to take advantage of the safe harbor, you don't have to. A state can choose not to take advantage of the safe harbor under existing law. That just exists if you want to take advantage of the safe harbor. What the compact does is uses that as the day to get all the other information to. Right,
Two
exactly.
member states.
Right, exactly.
So thus states are required by the state to make a final determination of their vote totals, and the chief election official of each member state shall treat as conclusive an official statement containing the number of popular votes in a state for each presidential slate made by the date established by federal law for making the state's final determination as to the counting of the electoral votes by Congress. So the chief election official, so the Secretary of State in New Mexico, shall treat as conclusive these official statements by other states. And that could be a variety of things, and we're going to talk about that, so I want to talk about that. So member states have to communicate this information within 24 hours of the safe harbor day for determining their own votes to other compact member states. So there is an exchange of statements by member states about their vote totals. So each member state provides to each other member state that information. So that leaves the question, because that begs the question for the second part, which is how are these statements obtained from non-member states? Because you have to add up the total vote. So one, this can come from state certifications of their elections, which for most states is by statute prior to the safe harbor day. Though it's not in all, and some states have no date. Just for the record, some states don't have any legislative date for when they certify. Most states do.
Did you look legislatively? Virtually everybody has at least an administrative proceeding.
Everyone, and states make this deadline all the time.
Exactly.
So that's not a bit, but it is, I mean, they do have to certify. They have to go through this process, they meet on Electoral College Day and cast their votes. So one place to do this is their state certification of their elections. The second place that they can get that information is from the Certificate of Ascertainments. And federal law requires each state to create 7 such certificates. And here's an example of our certificate from the last election. I think I used the last election. Yeah, so here, just. So this is a copy of our certificate of ascertainment. And there are 7 of these that are produced, and if you look, you can go online and look at these, and they look different from every state. Every state makes them look different. There's no set standard on how these look, but they do have the key information about the vote totals. So the certificates that you can see when there list the names of the electors chosen by the voters and the number of votes received. They list the names of all of their candidates for elector and the number of votes they received. And this is all online. You can just go online and click and get all of the certificate of votes, and I looked at a whole bunch of them, and you know, it's very weird. I think Kim pointed out that you have these states that, you know, like Kentucky has an 18-page statement, you know, New Mexico has a 1-page, so it varies drastically by state. So here's a picture, I thought I had a picture, that's next. And then I want to get this, and then I want to talk about these. The governor of each state prepares 7 original certificates of ascertainment. As you can see, Bill Richardson signed the bottom of that one, listing the persons appointed as electors. And each certificate has to be signed by the governor. 1 is sent to the archivist, and then a couple of copies.
Yeah, that's an important distinction, because there are 3 that are set aside for the archivist. 1 is not fully certified with the actual statement of the vote of what happens on
Well, this happens before the certificate of vote.
But that's the 1. The 2 that you send are sent after.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're sent after the...
After you vote, it gets sent to the archivist.
And we're going to look at a certificate of vote. I've learned all kinds of stuff. I didn't know any of this existed about the electoral. Amazing. Okay, so you can go online and you can actually look at every state's certificate of vote and their ascertainment, their certificate of ascertainment, and look at that. Okay, so each signature must be signed. So that's an example of what you have. It looks so bad that I want to. Here's another example of, this is like, I think this is like Maine or something like that. So they have a really long one too, because they do that district process. So they break it down by district and by state, since they have, their electors have a state aspect to it. Okay, so see how long theirs is compared to ours? Okay, so procedures for this determination, what does this mean for electors, and what documents are they given? So the way I understand this, and Senator Didier, did you get a copy of this, when you were an elector, did you get a copy of the certificate of ascertainment as part of your...
Yes.
You did?
It means you won the election.
Right, and you get that information.
It was the only election that was held regarding the election for elector.
Right, so you get that information, they hand you that.
Absolutely.
Right, and so 6 of these goes to the electors, and then they're attached to this certificate of vote, and then they're sealed and sent to
You get a
Congress.
certificate of election just like you do if you're running for state senator, like Senator Work. He gets a certificate that he's won the election. And the Secretary of State gives you that certificate that you've been elected.
Right, so it seems to me that this would mean, and I'm not sure, but it seems to me that this would mean procedurally that the Secretary of State would have to come up with a certificate of ascertainment that includes the information on the national popular vote.
You'd have to make that ascertainment as to
Yes,
who
one.
is actually appointed to cast the
Exactly.
vote. That's what you're ascertaining on that
So,
day. Right.
so that would mean that the certificate of ascertainment would take on a different look than it does now, right? Because you might have the state total, but you'd also have to have the national total there. So the Secretary of State, as part of the, no?
Well, yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
you would. Yes,
But you
okay,
can
I
do
thought
it,
you were
you guys can do it on
That's
one
my
page the way you
understanding.
want, or the way Kentucky does it with 18 pages. It's up to the
Right, it's up to
state.
you how you do that, but you have to add that information, right? So that's different than how we do it now, right? They only have to report. So when Senator Adair was elector, he got this and he knew that he was the correct elector, right? So in the case of a national popular vote, you could not rely on the state totals. The electors would have to be given the national popular vote totals so that they would know if they were
Yeah,
correct.
someone would have to do 50,
Yeah,
do that.
as part of their certificate of ascertainment.
Go back to the
In-
slide.
Okay. You want, oops,
Which is weird because who's gonna be the elector? The one who's elected, one that's statewide or the one who do you call to Santa Fe? Who does she call to Santa Fe at 11 o'clock on that Monday? You call the people who won the national popular vote
Yes.
electors, or you call the people who won the state?
Okay. Can I ask the question then?
Or they vote at cross purposes to each other?
No, no.
Are you-
Okay, we're here, we'll vote wrong.
It's what you're saying then, that there would be one more column in there that would include, instead of having this last column that says votes, that would say state votes, and then another column would say national votes?
Any way you want to do it, but on there you have to put the 50 state total, any way you want to do it, because that would determine which slate of electors would show up at the state capitol that
So
day.
you'd have the national totals.
Yeah, because that would
You have
be your
to
state
have-
law, that's how you.
And it would show up on this.
If
You
that's,
have to
if
have that
that's the
on
form you
the
choose,
agenda.
yes.
Yeah.
It's on your certificate of ascertainment, because that's the one we.
Because that's given to the electors,
And
so
the
they know
certificate of
that they're,
election that we sign.
I mean, they're given the same kind of information now, just at state level.
You
So
just
you
want
have
to
to.
roll out, yes. And then by then you know who's going to get called to the state house.
Right, so you know who to call to the state house. Okay. Okay, so we have a certificate of vote, the chief election officer, I think we did that. Okay, the certificate of vote, maybe we didn't do this. Article 3832, the chief election official office of each member of state, secretary of state in the case of New Mexico shall designate the presidential slate with the largest national vote total as the national popular vote winner. And from that, the electors produce a certificate of vote, which says how each of them, which slate they support. Okay, so you did that, right? Remember that process. So you sign something, and then the Secretary of State produces a certificate of vote, which is then included with the certificate of ascertainment and sent to Congress for counting, for actual vote counting. Okay. So the certificate of vote lists, just so you know, lists all the persons who received electoral votes for president and all the persons who received votes for vice president. And then the 6 pairs, we actually said this, the 6 pairs of certificates are sealed and certified by the electors as containing the list of electoral votes of the state and the president and vice president. And then they're sent to their designated offices. Okay, so there's 6 of them. So here's an example. This is our certificate of vote for 2008. This was our example certificate of vote that is sent. And again, these vary tremendously by state. Okay, so what does this mean? So other state processes, this means that the compact tells the Secretary of State or other designated state election official that the processes in the other states are valid, regardless of what their felon laws are, regardless of what their, how they counted their provisional ballots. It doesn't, what their outcome is their outcome, and we, trust that their process is their process, and that that they counted all the votes they were supposed to count in their state. So that's sort of that defining. That's just saying, look, we trust other states. So that makes each state's final determination of its popular votes conclusive, regardless of whether it's from a member state or a non-member state. Right? So whatever they say, we accept. So all the other states accept all the other states' certification.
Well, we do that now.
Well, we don't have to accept them now. I don't accept. I don't think New Mexico doesn't have anything to do with what Arizona does.
But you have to accept the outcome results.
Well, we aggregate the results, but I don't have to trust what Arizona. I just have to. They did what they did. They aggregated.
But you have to live by their results.
I have to live by their results.
It's a role of Congress on January 3rd, that they open up the ballots, and at that point, people can challenge, and you have to have a person from each house challenge something. They do it from time to time, challenge the electoral vote.
Yeah. Especially in the 40s.
There's been faithless electors, and then there've been like 2 faithless electors in the last 4 elections.
Well, the one in 2000, that was just